it again and caused the ECU to fail this time.
Well, let's talk about more exciting stuff. Unfortunately, Le Mans really it's hammered you this year, but believe me, some of the biggest teams in the world have come here and been turned away at the gate on the first time. But you made such a good showing in Laguna. You're probably excited about Salt Lake when you get back to the States. And the car handle's really great. And Jaguar is a brand that people are passionate about. So you're obviously onto something, and you can't let them all knock you back. But this was a brave move coming here.
Well, to bring a car here in its fourth race is a daunting task, and we knew that was a problem. We'd gone to Road Atlanta, did 2 really successful days, almost 1,000 miles. The first day we never took the hood off. We thought we're ready for Le Mans. Something in the airplane on the way over here obviously went awry.
Well, I'm sure you've got an early dinner reservation somewhere and you can watch the battle from a bar, but Paul would rather be behind the wheel. Guys?
Certainly you would rather be behind the wheel. He talked about his electrical gremlins. Well, obviously, we had a couple of our own here at Speed. So let's go back to Chris. Chris, fill us in on the gap that we kind of lost there from Dr. Ulrich. What was it that he had to say, and how are they going to fight back?
Oh, Brian, I couldn't believe you couldn't hear the interview. That was probably the best interview I've ever had.
You were great.
No,
you looked fine.
Yeah. Well, what he says is it's definitely taken a hit to lose that much ground so early in the race. You know, I think he said they're going to lose at least a minute. So losing a minute, you've got to make that up now. And they're going to have luck swing back the other way to try and catch them back up. The good thing they do have is time on their side. But you lose that much time, boy, they're going to really have to pick up the pace or do something to try and catch back up to those Peugeots, which are already a quicker car.
And just to clarify, we spoke about it, it's 3 minutes right now with the cars running slowly. It's essentially a third of a lap. At speed, they've been running 3:20s, 3:30, so it's just over a minute, maybe a minute 10 will be the gap once we get back to green flag running.
But the bad news is you can't defend against it. I mean, the next time we get a yellow, it can happen again.
You've got to stay close to your competitors or risk being split by those pace cars. You saw Nicolas Lapierre at the end of pit road. He had been held there waiting for the next pace car in line. Crew's already trying to take a break on pit road, but there are plenty more stories down there. Jamie Howe, what do you have?
Well, we mentioned at the top of the show, Brian, that the American favorite Flying Lizard Motorsports had a bit of an issue on the reconnaissance lap in their Porsche, and they did. They actually got a flat tire from one of the pieces of gravel that's around the circuit. The gravel around the course is very sharp, and as the gravel gets pushed onto the track, it poses the problem of getting flat tires. That was the bad luck that they had early on, but the team's already pushing back through. They're up to 7th in class right now. Jörg Bergmeister reports on the radio, everything in the car feels great.
Well, we talk about it every year, the sharp stones here at Le Mans. I picked up pieces that look like arrowheads. You have to endure if you want to taste the champagne at the end of 24 grueling hours from the Circuit Lazare. The 78th running of the 24 Hours of Le Mans continues.
Remember,
back to racing at Lazare. The 24 Hours of Le Mans back underway. The 3 pace cars have left the circuit, and we are back under green as you see the flags wave there. We're working hard to get you an update on Nigel Mansell, who had the crash that brought out that first full-course caution. Goodness me. Pedro Lamy, that was on board with him on the restart. And they talk about endurance right now. These boys are on it.
And I'll tell you what, Olivier Canel there looking at that monitor would not be happy with that shot. They have the lead. They have a big margin over these boys, the Audi brigade, and you don't even be taking no sort of risk. I mean, they're going to push flat out here today, Dorsey, but traffic is really the critical factor. You cannot afford to touch another car.
I'm not too sure I'm a great fan yet of this 3 pace car situation, because when they went back to green, the circuit is all cluttered with groups of cars of different classes, and you saw that move up through the inside in the grass. I mean, boy, oh boy. You know, I've said all along how cautions breed cautions. Now we got 3 times as many.
Well, exactly. What you're going to have is slow cars going back to green with the faster cars coming through. So it's somewhat disorganized chaos. I mean, it is really hairy out there for these guys to thread their way through traffic cleanly.
Well, I think the other thing, too, is we talked to Alexander Wirtz the other day, and he said, you know, we won this race last year by not running over curbs, not putting a wheel off, and in fact, our other 2 team cars had to change front splitters twice. We didn't have to change it at all, and yet we see Pedro Lamy early, not even an hour into this 24-hour event, going wide, dropping wheels off the shoulder to go around cars on a restart.
We asked Alex, how much lap time can you gain by using the curbs? And he said probably half to 1 full second. But he said, you know, the other cars had to change the splitter twice last year. This year, that splitter has been changed in its design. But these boys really are up against it right now. The 3 Audis running line astern now have a lot of ground to make up to get back on an equal footing with the Peugeots up front.
And, you know, we talked about the stones here and how they're almost like arrowheads. You know, when you start dropping wheels off, it just brings more and more of that clag up onto the racetrack. These tires are very, very sticky and gummy. They'll pick up any of that stuff. You look at doing a puncture, hurting an upright, breaking a shock absorber. I mean, these curves, it's just like getting hit in the gut in a fight. It will take you out sooner or later, those body punches.
The Audi crew looking on, as well as Olivier Canel, head of Peugeot Sport, as you watch Pedro Lamy and Frank Montagny as they flash through the Ford chicane back onto the front straightaway to complete yet another lap. Just one of many that they hope to complete here in the 24 hours.
This will be 11 laps that they put on the board so far. Now remember, they also had the formation laps, so if this had been running green, I would suspect these guys would have been in pit lane. But with a diesel, Dorsey, especially under yellow, you save fuel under yellow, under caution with any car, but with a diesel, even more so.
They make fuel. Those diesels, when you got them idling around, I tell you what, they're so efficient. I mean, that's one of the strong points they have. They make massive horsepower, massive torque, and they are very fuel efficient.
Last year we saw the Peugeots run 11 and 12 lap runs. The Audis were doing 12 and 13s. And when you read into the press releases from Audi, Chris mentioned it in the opening of the show, they talk about efficiency. I would have to think that Audi are thinking they can get one more lap on a fuel stint than the Peugeot's car can here today. What would that equate to? It would be 2 less fuel stops during the course of 24 hours. What does that mean in terms of pace? About half a second. You'd have to run faster to make up for that.
See the Gerard Welter LMP2 car on pit road doing their pit stop. Gomendi, Salini, and Salini behind the wheel, sharing that car here this weekend.
We're kind of in the window right now where we would normally see cars come in and do